another Saturday here. So let's get started. I'm Anna. I'm Anna Tai. I'm a registered dietitian, board certified specialist in pediatric nutrition, also certified hypnotherapist, and I'm here to talk about natural alternative ADHD treatment. I'm also the author of the book Eat to Focus. If you haven't gotten it, it's available on Amazon. So you should be able to find the link in the comment, or if you're on Instagram, you should be able to find the link in my bio link. So today is actually part two because of what I started last week. Last week I started talking about the natural alternative ADHD treatment, and I was talking about the four steps that I used or that I discussed in my book, and also the same four step process that I helped my own child through her childhood and get her to a pretty good college, graduate with honors and everything. So last week, just summarize last week. So last week I talked about the first two steps, which is number one is the elimination diet. It's not as crazy as most people think, like you only eat like a few food, but you're actually in the elimination diet, or the I call it elimination clean start phase. You basically just limiting um, the food to only the food that works for the body. So that way you actually maximize your nutrient intake. People often think that elimination diet is very restrictive, but it is restrictive in a sense of food choices, but not the nutrient content. Actually, a lot of people feel so much better after doing the elimination diet, even though their food choices have shrunk significantly, but what was left on the elimination diet was only the food that your body loves, and it loves your body back. And the number two step two is feeding the ADHD brain. And in that case, it kind of goes along with the elimination diet. Is focusing on just food that maximize focusing on only food that loves your body and um, boost brain function and everything. Um, what I didn't mention is that one thing I didn't mention is that the elimination diet, what it does is it eliminates food that potentially makes the ADHD symptoms worse or triggers some severe adverse reactions. So that's what the first two steps are. The next two steps that I'm going to talk about is number three is healing the ADHD gut, and number four is rewiring the brain for more focus and calmness and better memory. So let's get started. So in step three, we're working on the leaky gut, and it kind of all connected back. Like this is the reason why the elimination clean start phase is so important, is because that 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 one phase or the elimination diet is almost like the fundamental basis of this whole eat to focus protocol, is because when you eliminate a lot of the processed food and potentially food intolerance from your child or from your own diet, you'll see significant improvement in your focus, your energy level, your mood, and confidence, and all of those. But at the same time, again, you're not just randomly taking out food to starve yourself. It's a very methodological, methodical process of taking food out and keeping only food that works for your body. So along with that, um, the third steps where we're talking about healing the ADHD gut, we kind of look at the whole gut, gut and brain connection. So the gut have huge connection or huge function in brain function. So the gut, you can think of the gut and the brain connection kind of like a giant, what's that tree they have in Hawaii? It's the banyan tree, right? So the top of the tree where all the leaves are, you can imagine that as your brain, and then the trunk of the body will be the connection to the root. So the top of the tree is connected to the root, and the root is rooted inside the ground where it absorbs nutrients and waters into the tree system, up through the trunk into the top of the tree to provide nutrients. And if you think of how the brain and the intestine or the gut works, that's kind of the best analogy I could think of. So In that sense, that means that whatever your gut can absorb is going to benefit your brain. So starting from there, then we're going to be like, oh yeah, 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 that makes so much sense. But there's also this other thing too, right? Similar to very, very similar to how the root system of a tree works is that inside the tree or underground where the root is, there's also a lot of bacteria that helps to create nutrients specifically for the tree. And a lot of times we just think, oh yeah, the tree needs sunshine, needs water, but we kind of forget that inside the dirt where the roots are, there's a lot of minerals. There's also bacteria decomposing dead materials to create nitrogen for the tree to use as well. So in our body, when we eat food, the food is being broken down by our digestive system, right? Like first it is digested in the mouth and then in the stomach it breaks it down further, and then in the small intestine it gets further food gets further digested into the tiniest most fundamental pieces of the food, which is like the amino acid, glucose, and fatty acid to be absorbed, because anything bigger than those your body won't be able to absorb. So a very good digestive system is required for us to absorb all the good food that we eat. So once the body or intestine absorb all the nutrients, that nutrients is going to be delivered through the blood system into different organs. And again, anything that is good for your body is going to be good for your brain as well. So what also happens is in our intestine, there are actually bacteria who also eat the food. So the food goes through the stomach, the small intestine where it is absorbed. But sometimes there are some food that are not being absorbed, so they continue to pass through the small intestine into a large intestine where majority of the bacteria live. And in the large intestine, where this bacteria is kind of like a very smart salvaging system. So in the large intestine, the bacteria actually works on this leftover food, kind of like for some of you who work in a hospital or work in a restaurant, you know, like at the end of the day, all the leftover food, you might have some kind of waste management company who comes and pick up all the leftover from your restaurant and bring it to the farm to feed the pigs or whatever animals. So it's kind of like that, except that we have our own system. So in the large intestine, actually there are more digestion going on, but the digestion is actually different. This is where the bacteria is eating on the leftover food. And when the bacteria eat the leftover food that our body didn't completely absorb, it actually makes a byproduct, or actually makes many byproducts. And a few of those byproducts are actually brain chemicals. And most people didn't realize that is the gut do makes a lot of serotonin. So again, so from the tree trunk or the roots or where the intestine is, it absorbs the nutrients. So again, there are like 7 basic human nutrients or basic nutrients that the human needs. So water, glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Those are like the 7 basic. That's kind of from my own thing. But so that's what your intestine absorb all those 7 nutrients through your guts. But when the food that is partially digested ended up in your big intestine or large intestine, then the bacteria will work on it as like last resort to salvage even more nutrients from that. And again, it does make some other nutrients, but then some brain chemicals. And this is the tricky part, right? Like then what's the deal with the probiotics and all those things or food choices? So there are different kind of bacteria. There are like something like 300 different types of species of bacteria in our intestine. And the reason why none of us get sick is because they have to be in a certain balance, like the good, bad, and then there's also fungus in there or what they call yeast. There are good yeast, bad yeast, good bacteria, bad bacteria. So good bacteria are the ones that we call probiotics. So probiotics are the bacteria that eat certain food and then they create things that actually makes us feel good. Like some of them make some short chain fatty acids that our body can absorb and use as energy. They also make some of the brain chemicals that we need to help us calm down. And then there's the bad bacteria that tends to feed on the yucky food, kind of like you can think of them like roaches and rodents on the street eating garbage, right? Kind of like that. So when they do that, if you ever go to like some places where the garbage is all over the place and then rats running around, those places are not really clean. So the same idea too, when you're eating the wrong kind of food and you're feeding the wrong kind of bacteria, those bacteria generally cause more damage than good. So the things, the waste product that they generate is actually a lot more, have no benefit to a human being. But a good bacteria, on the other hand, when they eat the right kind of food and they thrive, they make help us digest food better. They make nutrients for our body. Like bacteria actually can make vitamin K and vitamin B12 in our guts, and they also make brain chemicals as well. So that's the reason why we need to make sure that we feed our gut and also repair it. And what I've noticed also from research and from my own experience is that a lot of kids with ADHD or any other kind of mental illnesses or disorder, diseases, or even autism, they do tend to have a lot of food sensitivity and digestive issues like constipation or diarrhea, or sometimes, what's the other one? Constipation, diarrhea, bedwetting, having issue controlling the bowels and things like that. So, oh, and food allergy. I think I mentioned that. So that's all kind of coming from the gut potential. And again, um, going back to food sensitivity, a lot of times people think that anytime you react to a food is a food allergy. But again, food, a lot of the food sensitivity or intolerance or reaction to food we see in most people with ADHD or even children with ADHD is not a true allergic reaction. True allergic reaction triggers allergic response in the body, which will show up on a blood test that tests for IgE response. Most of the foods reaction that we see in kids or even adults with ADHD is something that is negative. When they do the blood test, skin test is always negative, but you know every time that your child or you eat that specific food, you react. Either you might have physical symptoms like pain, feeling nauseated, stomach pain, or diarrhea, constipation, or skin rash, or you could also have behavioral manifestation like you feeling more moody, or you feel super tired, or you feel irritable, or sometimes in children we see anger outbursts, emotional mood swings, and things like that. So those are other manifestation of food intolerances. It's not the same as food allergy. So with food intolerances, it's not, like I said, doesn't always trigger an allergic response, but sometimes could simply be because the gut is not is leaky, so it becomes less selective. Because, like I mentioned earlier, the purpose of the digestion is to break down all the food that we eat to the finest, most fundamental nutrient um, unit for the body to absorb. If your digestion is not working well and you have a chunk of protein or a chunk of carbohydrate or a chunk of fatty acid that your body cannot actually absorb because that's not the right form the body can handle, it just sits there. And sometimes when you have like, often people have leaky gut, so the gut is like the first line of defense for the whole body, right? It's like besides the skin, the outer layer is the next line of defense of the body is the gut because that's where we put outside things into our body, right? So the gut usually is super tightly locked up, and only the fundamental nutrients that I mentioned will go through. But sometimes through lifestyle choices, eating like wrong kind of food, or stress or whatever can cause the gut to become leaky or damaged. And in that case, there are little holes through where some partially digested food can get through into the gut. And that sometimes can trigger some reaction in the body. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the leaky gut. And usually, like people with leaky gut will have like many different symptoms like stomach pain, feeling nauseous after eating, bloatedness, gassiness. Sometimes you might feel like you eat something and the food gets stuck in you in your stomach forever, or sometimes you just feel super tired after eating, or you have mysterious rash after eating certain food, or yeah, just different kind of reaction. But yeah, so that's the leaky gut. So knowing how the gut is connected to the brain in terms of feeding the brain right kind of nutrients and brain chemicals, then we can start figuring out what's a good way to feed this gut, right? So first of all, the gut is an internal organ. So that means that one of the things that you can add more to your diet is something like organ food, things like chicken, not have to be chicken, but liver or heart. You can eat intestines. Some people eat intestines, but I don't. I think it's gross. You can also do bone marrow and things like that. So all of these organs, the reason why these are good is because they're connective tissue. And your gut basically is another form of connective tissue or collagen. And yeah, collagen is also good. So if you do like a collagen protein supplement or bone broth, that's amazing. So you can do that every day. Or if you're eating chicken liver or any kind of organ meat, try to have it once or twice a week should be enough. But if you're using a supplement like a bone broth or collagen powder, you can use that every day, and that'll be just an additional source to put your gut lining back together. Then second thing is to um, add add fermented food. So fermented food, we're talking about things like maybe kimchi, which is fermented cabbage, which is a Korean thing. You can do sauerkraut, which is more German. You can do kombucha, but the ones without sugar in it. You can, what else? You can do kefir if you're not sensitive to milk. I usually try to stay away from yogurt because a lot of the yogurt, even though they advertise that, oh, it's a very good source of probiotic, but the thing is they don't put enough of probiotics in it. The whole thing is this whole commercializing profit driven kind of thing is that they're like, oh yeah, here's the thing of yogurt, but we'll put a sprinkle of like some probiotics in there and call it, oh, it's probiotic yogurt. So you want to have at least good amount of probiotics. So like I said, you can do um, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, pickled vegetables. Japanese do a lot of those. And then also in Japanese cuisine, they also have like nattos. If you're a fan of that, like it is an acquired taste. I live in Hawaii for 20 something years now, and I still have not acquired the taste of natto. Also, miso, which in Japanese restaurant they serve that a lot, the miso soup. That's another form of fermented food. So you can use those. But if you really, really have like some pretty bad symptoms, like GI symptoms, I would recommend a probiotics because probiotics can work a lot faster. The fermented food is a good way for maintenance, but if you have like crazy diarrhea, constipation, um, but definitely you need to work on your diet first. But constipation or diarrhea, a lot of like rash and things like that, or bloatedness, gassiness, I would definitely suggest taking a probiotics. And I would take at least minimum 10 billion CFUs to start with. And the recommendation inside my book is a lot higher because knowing the population that I work with, we start at least 50 billion um, with the billion CFUs probiotics to start with. And then let's see, the other thing is that, so earlier we mentioned about how some bacteria prefer certain food. So remember, I mentioned about the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. Good bacteria prefers the good food, like a lot of fruits and vegetables. Actually, more vegetables and less fruit, and then beans or anything that have fiber, because the fiber from the food, the natural food, actually feeds the good bacteria. And the bad, when the good bacteria get fed well, they'll provide more useful resources for our human body and also calming brain chemicals for our body as well. On the other hand, the bad bacteria or the yucky yeast, bad yeast, they tend to prefer the junk food, like the processed food from a can, from a box, from frozen meals, fast food, sugary stuff, sugar cereals, sugary granolas, sugary drinks, all of those kind of food tends to feed the bad bacteria. And when bad bacteria eat well, then they actually produce a lot of gas, a lot of smelly gas, and a lot of discomfort, and not much of beneficial things that our body use. So we need to be selective. And the way that I always explain to my patient about probiotics is kind of like having a house pet or having goldfish in your home. So like if you brought in, because the purpose of having probiotics is really to have them to stay in your intestine, right? Like you don't want like have to take probiotics for the rest of your life to keep them in there. So it's like you have goldfish. Today you bought 10 goldfish. You're not gonna buy another 10 goldfish the next day, right? But so with the probiotics, you take it every day, but at the same time, you have to put in the right kind of food to feed the probiotics. And some of you might have heard of the term prebiotics. So the probiotics is the bacteria itself, and the prebiotics is the fiber that feeds the probiotics or your good bacteria. So it's kind of like you adopting a dog or a cat or buying goldfish from the pet store. You bring them home and you always make sure you get the goldfish food or you get the dog food or the cat food. Make sure you get the right kind of food for each animal. So when you bring in probiotics into your system, you have to make sure that you have good bacteria, good food for them too. So what you can do is when you take a probiotics, you can also get a prebiotic supplement along with it. Some probiotics actually already have prebiotics added to it. Or the other option is also making sure that you have a lot of good fiber, high fiber food in your diet as well, like vegetables, nuts, and beans, and those kind of things. Okay. And then what else? Oh, the other thing is limiting sugar from your diet because first of all, sugar is just poisonous. Even though it tastes sweet, it is good, but it's so addicting. It messes with your brain chemicals, but it also feeds the bad bacteria, specifically yeast. For those of you who are baker out there, what is the first step that you do when you try to bake bread? That's right. You feed the yeast, right? You put the yeast with hot water and sugar. And why do you do that? And the reason why you put yeast and sugar and hot water together is because the yeast is going to eat that sugar. And when the yeast eat the sugar, it creates the gas that cause the bread to rise. Okay, so if you ever wonder why every time you eat bread or eat something sweet and you feel so bloated, think of think of the fact that you're actually baking bread, starting bread in your stomach. So every time you eat something sweet, you're going to be feeding the bad bacteria in your intestine. And that bad bacteria, like I mentioned earlier, when they eat the food that they thrive on, they don't make anything beneficial for us. They just cause more trouble. So they make more gas. They cause the cause you to have bloating and maybe sometimes even diarrhea too, because it's just not a great scene in there. So avoid sugar, avoid processed food because that's what the bacteria thrive on. So if you want to have a healthy and happy gut, fermented food, organ food, probiotics, collagen supplements, and what's the last thing? And limit sugar. And then, oh, one more thing, drink a lot of water because when you start putting in the good bacteria in, as in the form of probiotics, and then the good food that heals the leaky gut, the bad bacteria is going to start dying off. That's one of the things that I see a lot of times. Like I used to see that because now I'm smarter now, so I remind my patients. A lot of times people start probiotics for a couple of days and then they're like, oh my God, my symptoms get worse. I get more constipated. I get more diarrhea. I get more bloated. And then they stop. But the thing is, if you have a reaction, any kind of reaction, good or bad, after starting probiotics, it's actually a good sign that the probiotics is working because that means that your body is actually responding to it. So make sure that you stay. What you can do is maybe cut back on the dose instead of taking it every day, take it every other day and slowly increase to once a day. And again, probiotics is not meant to be taken forever. You take it for a while, kind of normalize and rebalance your gut bacteria, and then you can stop. And then the next time you take, it might be the next time you have to take antibiotics for whatever reason, or maybe you have a stomach bug or stomach flu, food poisoning, anything that can disrupt the bacterial balance. Then after any of those episodes, you should try to take some probiotics for like a month or two to rebalance everything out. And then what's the other thing? Oh yeah, so those are things to look out for. So when the bad bacteria start dying, you might actually feel worse first. The idea is kind of like remodeling your home, right? When you're remodeling your kitchen or remodeling your whole home, things get really messy before it gets better. So it's the same idea. So when you start taking probiotics and you start noticing something get worse, you get more tired, you get more grumpy, your stomach hurts more diarrhea, more constipation, is a very good sign your body is responding. So just keep it going and drink a lot of water to flush it out. That's the reason why water is so important. You have to drink it out. And sometimes you can even take some extra vitamin C as well, because vitamin C is a really good antioxidant to help mitigate some of the um, toxic stuff that the body or the bacteria generates when they die. So, okay, so that's the leaky gut part. So then the fourth step of the eat to focus process or protocol is to rewire the brain. Because if you have, or your child, or you have been like um, suffering lack of focus or any of the ADHD symptoms, impulsivity, it's your brain connection is not quite there, the focus connection. Because you know how like we often say that practice makes perfect. The reason why practice makes perfect, it might not be perfect. It's just that if you do the same motion 100 times or 1,000 times, you can be very good at it without even thinking, right? But then when you have ADHD, you have not able to focus. Every time you do something halfway before you finish, you switch to another thing. So that pathway to complete the task was never fully developed. It's kind of like how you learn to drive, right? So when you first learn to drive, you're like, okay, I need to get into the car, make myself comfortable. I have to turn on the key, check my mirror here, check my mirror here, check my mirror here, and then make sure that my seat is comfortable, my legs is able, or my foot is able to touch the pedal. For those of us who are short, um, and then when we drive, then we're like, okay, let's start driving, and you're like checking like 10,000 times before you're like, okay, I think I'm good. I can start going, right? So that's how it started initially when you learn something. So we have to relearn everything, right? So that, but after like the 10,000 times or maybe 1,000 times of driving, now you just get in the car automatically. You're talking on the phone, trying to tell someone how to do something, and you just get in a car, turn on a key, check your mirror, check this, check that, and then look a couple times and I'm like, oh, clear, and just go without much thinking, right? So that's why like the fourth step is to find ways to help reconnect those focus memory. So that way now we can actually start a project and continue on that project until it is finished. Because now we have the resources from step one, step two, and step three to get the brain to actually stay focused and stay on the same path until the task is finished. And then when we do that multiple times, that focus connection will become stronger, kind of like building muscle memory. Because one thing people don't realize is that the brain, even though it sits up here, a chunk of big fat blob, the brain actually functions very much like a piece of muscle. Because this brain is about average 3 pounds for most human beings. This 3 pounds average about 2 to 3% of the body weight, but it uses 20% of the energy you take in every day. So it is a very hypermetabolic organ in the body next to the heart. So so knowing that, that means that it's so important that you do step one, step two, and step three or actually at least step one, step two, making sure that you eat only food that fits your body and food that fits your brain, right? So making step one, step two is dialed in, then the third step or the fourth step is really to create that brain connection. Because sometimes a part of the thing is that when some of the brain, the neurons are not very fully developed, the electrical signal doesn't go past through properly. So that's why sometimes you get distracted. It's like instead of going straight, you find somewhere else to go and stimulate another pathway, and you start a new task. So now, with all these things that we do in step one, step two, and step three, your brain now have all the power it needs and all the resources it needs. So that next step, the very last step, is really to create that new programming and connection. And you do that by doing different activities to focus. And I know it sounds kind of crazy because you're like, but I have ADHD, I'm not supposed to be able to focus. It's because all this year, all the things that you've been doing is you're learning to not focus. And now, again, step one, step two, and step three give you the brain power and the resources for your brain to actually learn to focus. That's why, like, you have to relearn that behavior. All this focus thing, people think that you're born with it. Part of it is maybe you're born with the brain and the brain chemicals and the brain neurons and all of those that you have. Part of the other thing is that you can retrain. No one, if the thing is, if we just assume what we're born with, all of us will still be a baby and still babbling without words, right? As humans, we learn new things every day, and focus is something that can be relearned and retrained just like any other skills. No one are born natural tennis players or golf players or karate or surfers, but it is something that we learn as we grow up and as we develop passion for any of those. So, and rewiring the ADHD brain is very similar, except that you're not going to just sit there and read a book or try read a book, read do a long passage or do math. You find things that actually um, tickles your passion and makes you keep wanting to do it. So like in kids, they can do sports. Like um, when my daughter was younger, we put her in soccer first because I was like, oh, everyone's kids seems to be playing soccer. Let's try soccer. But I realized soccer was not her thing because she, I think she doesn't quite under the whole thing of teamwork that you have to run and chase the ball together. She'll just stand behind while all the other girls run after the ball, and she's like, why do I have to run after the ball? There's only one ball, and there are like only five girls. That means that I'm not going to touch the ball, so I'll just wait here, wait for them to bring the ball back to me. So that was her thing. Then I was like, okay, let's find something else that she enjoys. So we discovered, or actually she discovered tennis. So and she still play tennis to this day, and it turns out she's a great tennis player. So, and it's something that she loves, and it helps her get some of the email and help her get some focus and that kind of mental stress as well. So that's her thing. And then she also liked golf as well. So, like um, activities that are really, really good for the ADHD brain. People often think that the ADHD brain cannot focus. It's more so like they just find some of the other activities boring. That it might look like they're not paying attention or not focused. But activities that do really well for kids with ADHD and adult with ADHD are usually the ones that require specific skills, because with those things it's like they have to force them to like really focus, kind of like driving. There's so many steps, right? So tennis is one, because most people, if you really want to play tennis and have fun, you have to take lessons to learn the stroke. Because I've tried that in college. I tried playing tennis with my friends. Like all the balls just fly out the court. It doesn't work. So tennis is one. Golf is another one. Like golf is really hard to play if you don't have any lesson. So golf tennis requires special skills. Also things like surfing as well, because when you surf in the water, you require the whole body to be coordinated. So and also karate, cycling is not doesn't require much um, doesn't require much training, cycling, and running. But a lot of people find um, calming or benefits for the ADHD symptoms in running and cycling. And actually, a lot of the doctors that I know at work, they are athletes themselves who do a lot of like long distance stuff like marathon, triathlons, and things like that. So yeah, challenging activities that requires full brain involvement. Those are the best activities for kids with ADHD. Um, like with running, if you have ever run a marathon, it's like it seems like a very simple sport. You just run, seems boring, but the thing is, the fact that keeping yourself going for after first mile, second mile, third mile, all the way to 26 mile, that's the mental focus of the marathon training. Uh, Same for triathlon. Like again, it's not so much the skills; it's more the mental training. So yeah, those are good sports, but I don't advocate to go out for those right away. But for your kids, just let them discover what's the best sports that they feel that they enjoy. They have to feel challenged because when they feel that the sports is a little bit challenging to them, not too much, just so enough that they feel like, oh, it's kind of hard, but then they did a couple times, they try it out, fail a few times, and then they did it, and that's how you build confidence. You build confidence by doing things that feel challenging. Because after a couple times, you fail and then you finally succeed. It is that success after that failure that boosts the chemicals, the dopamine, that makes them feel good, that makes them want to keep going. Um, other, other things that also help reward the brain for more focus and calm will be things like yoga. Yoga is really good, and also meditation. Yoga is good in the sense that it is also a full body engagement type of um, activities. It might seem like very lame when you watch someone do yoga because that's what I thought many years ago. I was like, oh, it's so easy. Because many years ago, I started out doing marathons, so I was like one of those crazy people, like, yes, I can do it. It's hard, I'm gonna do it, right? And I see people doing yoga, I was like, oh, it looks so easy. I'm gonna fall asleep doing that. Then one time, my friend dragged me out to a yoga class. I was like, oh my god, yoga is difficult. I was like, the next day I was hurting so bad after the yoga class. I was like, I did not realize there's a muscle behind my arm. Like it just hurt so bad. And after that, I was like, I changed my my idea about yoga. I was like, yoga is a good sport. It's very challenging because like you see people doing yoga standing in the tree pose, and it looks so easy because, of course, these people like practicing yoga for like 10, 20 years. They do the tree pose like nothing. Like the tree pose, if you don't know, is the one where you stand on one leg and then with your other leg on resting on the knee. And you're like, oh, that's so easy. I can do it. But when you actually do it, you're like, oh my god, how am I supposed to balance on one leg? I didn't realize that balancing on one leg is so difficult, right? But just the act of trying to balance on that one leg and not move requires so much up here because your brain has to be so calm. Because anytime when you try to do that tree pose, try to look around and see what's going on, you're gonna fall. So the yoga, a lot of it is like even though it challenges the body, but at the same time it challenges the brain to stay calm and focus, and then that's how you maintain that stillness in yoga. And also when you're in that stillness, like trying to keep your body in that same pose, it requires your brain to like, okay, where's my arm now? Where's my knee? Where's my leg? Like try to focus on every part of the body. It's actually really good. I like that. So like I said, for activities that's good for kids or adults with ADHD should be something that they enjoy and is somewhat challenging just enough that they feel good when they accomplish the goal, but not so challenging that they just give up before they even reach the goal. So like maybe instead of going straight out for a full marathon, just start with like a 3K or like some smaller races. And that's really how I started with all of that. And it felt so good. But anyway, let's see what else. Yoga, meditation. Oh yeah, meditation. Okay, I know some of you probably rolling your eyes when you hear me talking about meditation for ADHD, and you're like, I can barely even focus. But the thing is, again, the focus is something that you can train, and there's studies after studies that talk about neuroplasticity, which is a study or the idea that our brain is capable of changing and reshaping itself. And you can do that with many different things, like the activities that I mentioned earlier, and meditation. They studies um, different universities have studies monk from Tibet, I think, because the monks they meditate hours at a time, and they were able to show that with meditation the monks actually changed the chemical structure, not just the chemical structure, chemical and the physical structure of the brain. So your brain is capable of change. You just need to give it the right food, right resources, and the right activities to facilitate that. So meditation, maybe you can meditate like a couple hours like the monk to start with. That's probably too much for anyone anyway. But just start with 1 minute. Can you close your eyes for a minute and then just slowly work up to 5 minutes, then 10 minutes? When I first started meditation, I might be able to do 1 or 2 minutes because every time I close my eyes, I just want to open my eyes, right? It's almost like all this thought, crazy thoughts like, oh, I need to do this, need to do that. And all this thought was coming to me. And every couple of minutes, I want to open my eyes to find my notebook to write down something, right? Or I felt like I'm missing out on something if I close my eyes for too long. But but you just train yourself. Every time you find yourself open your eyes or your thought wandering away, you're like you catch yourself like snap back, come back, and close your eyes. And then set a timer and just give yourself a goal. Okay, today we're going to aim for 5 minutes. So you just give yourself 5 minutes. Sit there for 5 minutes and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes and not think of anything. Doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to keep my eyes closed. And just focus on that. Don't ask for too much. Just like I just want 5 minutes with my eyes closed. And you practice that. And then next day when you reach 5 minutes easily, then you go a little bit longer. And for your kids, this is the fun part. Actually, a lot of schools started doing having the kids do meditation, and they are showing that kids who meditate seems to have more even mood, not as many crazy tantrums and things like that. But with kids, like with my daughter, I used to have her meditate just 5 minutes. That's all we need. And I just hide down in her bed before bed with all the lights turned off, and I have her pick up one of her favorite stuffed animals or stuffed animal toys for the day or the night. And then she put her stuffed animal on her belly while she's lying down. And I tell her, take a deep breath in until your stuffed animal rises up. And then you let go, breathe out, and then your stuffed animal goes down. So that way, because kids need a little bit more outside visual to help them. So she just do that for a couple of minutes. I don't remember what we do, but that's something that was fun because like, oh look, your animal's going up, going down, going up, going down. It's just fun. Like kids love anything that have like a cause and effect. That's why they love pushing buttons because when you push a button, something happens, right? So give them something that will cue them visually. So yeah, but but that's it. That's the 3 steps. The 2 steps we talked about last week, and then today we talk about healing the leaky gut or the ADHD gut, and then also talking about how to rewire the ADHD brain. So that's it for today. And then um, and again, if you haven't gotten my book, it's Eat to Focus right here. Get it from Amazon. It's actually an international best-selling sellers right now. So get your copy on Amazon or from my website if you don't have Kindles or you don't want a hard copy. And then I will still see you next week, but my time might have changed because we're going to Switzerland. So next Saturday I'll probably be somewhere in transit, might be in Canada somewhere. So I'll try and see how my flight schedule is. So I'll try and find some time to try come on live shortly, just for a little bit, and see if you have any question. If not, I'll probably answering question in Facebook. Okay, so I'll still expect to be here, and if you don't catch me because my time is off, just watch the replay later. Okay. All right, everyone. You all have a wonderful Saturday. See you all next week. Bye.